Hey guys, Mustached here to review The Strangers Chapter 1. So, I'm a little late on this one, obviously, and I decided after checking out this movie to kind of fall back and see the previous installments of The Strangers, the first movie and its sequel, I guess I would call it. And I guess this is some sort of prequel that takes place after the first one, or before the first one even, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, anyway. This movie begins with some good old running in the forest, and we see our killers pretty much pop up right out of the gate, striking our guy in the forest down and dead. So, we then cut to our main pair that we follow in this movie. A red-haired woman by the name of Anya and her husband Ryan. They are cross-country traveling from Oregon to some other state. Point being, when they land in a new area and they're looking to find a place to lay low, or just find a place to lay in the beds and stuff and all that good stuff, we get a little bit of personality, which is something I do cover when it tends to come to horror, and the lack of it that you get in a good chunk of horror movies. At least we get that, she comes across as the more optimistic and trustworthy one, whereas he comes across as more pessimistic and least trustworthy, and we see that play out as they are finagling their way through this little situation they find themselves in at the beginning, or nearish the beginning anyway. But when they see that some of their supplies are running low in their little household, she tells him to go get some supplies, and while he is out and about, she gets a little frightened by the consistent banging at her door. We learn, again, a little bit about our couple, that they're not yet married, but there seem to have been plans to. Well, that does come up a little later. And, of course, her calls for Ryan fall on short ears, I suppose, because he's still out and about. Anyway, so she's freaking out. We see a cutaway between our two situations where he's going out to get his supplies and she's freaking out. Even seeing a masked figure in one of the near the end of the situation, but we, of course, as the audience, see a little bit more. A little hint of that these individuals know their way in and out of the house that they are preying on, or more so that they even know the entire area of the forest as well. So, as we begin, it is here where when he returns, or shortly after, there are quite a few number of issues that I take with this film. It's primarily in the sake of situational awareness, is what I would call it. For example, she has her phone, she lets it charge, she doesn't call the police after the first, after seeing the person in her house with the mask. That would be step number one, and maybe even sooner than that. Probably when they were, interluded by the girl knocking at their door, asking for Tamara, even way back when, So there are definitely situational awareness sore spots that definitely plague this movie. Now, I will give the original Stranger some credit, is that they do play off the desperation of at least attempting to call off the police early enough, and, the need to charge the phone in the first place to create at least that level of tension and believability that someone would call the police immediately, or at least attempt to. Here, it does feel a little bit more delayed, which does bring up a big issue that I have with the rest of this movie, because every step that they take is always too little, too late. Because there is another instance of that in this movie. Anywho, so we get more instances of the bag people, as I'll call them, or, I called Bagman, and Masked Lady and Masked Girl, I guess. Because I don't know if they have names or whatever, but point being is that they are, skulking about. And eventually, at some point later on, Ryan returns with no one else, so now she's freaking out and he doesn't believe her. And of course, like I said, they now both see the masked girl. And he warns to call the police, which is, again, a little too late. They see the dead animal that the hunters, I guess I'll call them as a group, have hunted down. And shortly after that, the ex-guy comes barging in. So their time of him being in disbelief is luckily cut a little short. Let it be said that is a typical, or a more typical trope in horror films typically, is the person not believing their spouse. And it has gone both ways a few times. But I will say, in terms of my long resume of watching films, it does tend to be the female that is trusted least, or, it happens to the female more often, to females more often than males. But again, it has gone both ways in certain other horror films, but here we are with another one. But again, it doesn't last too long. So now they're in their situation where they're both in, and they make their way upstairs as the masked people make their presence fully known, as if they weren't doing so already. They get some time to sneak out downstairs, and now his phone is finally broken at this point. Had quite a few opportunities to call that thing, not even sure how it left his person. In fact, I think that's something else I would have criticized in the previous movie if I... it's hard keeping track of somebody else's phone, let alone your own, so I don't know how much of a criticism I could levy against that, but hey, here we are. So they use the bathroom ducts to move on ahead, or try to sneak along. And they sneak outside successfully, and they make the next stupid decision. As a couple now, they head into the cabin that is pretty close to their house. They should have just followed, and, I think they try the car before this, and it doesn't work, if I remember this correctly. But they try the cabin next, which is the next fatal flaw this couple next makes. Again, they could have just taken the path on the road, on the main road, and probably just should have followed it, away. Instead of going to the cabin, but that's where they go instead. And looky, as we proceed, surprise, surprise, that one of them's there in the cabin. And so, he grabs a gun, so now he has a gun, the main character, Ryan does. And he's not afraid to let loose, very not gun trained, as it were. This is something passed down from the previous movie as well. So they skirt along the house with the gun, and they hear some noise. And much like the original movie, once again, the guy turns so quickly and just shoots whoever was there, only to find out that it was the owner that was letting them stay there in the first place and not any of the masked people. So they leave they see that Orion sees that the guy has left his key behind to his car, so they get in the car, and thus they get rammed into shortly after, because the masked people are just so many more steps ahead of them at this point already. So she fumbles outward, he remains stuck there, and she's deep in the forest, trying to call the police because she's had her phone this entire time, by the way. Only now, she's attempting to call the police. That's right, it takes this long and the movie is already almost over. We see Ryan trying to make a makeshift water situation work out for himself, I guess, is what this little scene is meant to be, but he's also making a shit ton of noise. We see that the girl, running for her life, begins to stop and look around. And look around, and look around, and look around, until she's suddenly knocked out instead of continuously moving, which probably would have been, again, the better option in this situation. But hey, mistakes continue to be made for the price of this movie. Anywho, we see that Ryan, sneaks up on one of them, with shotgun in hand, by the way. And he's threatening to shoot one of the ladies. And he doesn't immediately shoot, taking too long, thus one of the masked man comes up behind him and knocks him out, again making another mistake. Should have taken her out immediately, and then moved like her. Make it so that you kill one of them, and then you move your own location, and now the other two are probably going to move to the location where they heard the gunshot, giving you ample opportunity to, try to find your wife in this situation. But no, of course, instead, they both get knocked out, they both get brought back to the house, and they both get stabbed and died. And yeah, she doesn't die, he does. She ends up injured, deeply injured, but alive. So this is again marked from the original as well, The Strangers. And of course, when asked why, they simply reply, because you were here. Before the stabbing, anyway. And they make their escape when the police sirens catch up and completely miss our trio of killers. And she ends up in the hospital waking up. And that's the end of The Strangers chapter 1, rather. So, as you can imagine, I would say the first little intro moment was okay. Like I said, it's basic, very basic character moments that are built here in this moment. I could have built up with a little bit more of that, honestly. Because again, having characters you care about lends you to care about their situation. And secondly, in accordance with that, having your characters make smarter decisions at the appropriate times. Again, running away, calling the police when you have the opportunity, killing the killer that is obviously not gonna back down. Continuous amount of errors that are just made on this couple's part here in this movie. Now, I should mention that the movie that came out before this, which is called The Stranger's Dark Night or whatever it's called, all three of them die, I think. Like, that's the end of this movie, which was why I prompted to say that I think this is like a prequel to that movie, obviously. Unless we have copycats, which I don't know if that's the situation, but hey, I would still give this movie like a 4 out of 10. You know, it still needs quite a bit of work to be of sufficient quality for a good chunk of it. Even if, you know, your killers are going to be outsmarting your heroes in this situation, you still want to give your characters, the ones that are going to end up dying in this case, you still want to give them enough believability in what they would do in every given scenario. And then you back that up with how much more smarter are the villains than the heroes, instead of dumbing down your main characters to make the villains just come across as smart. That's not good writing, quite frankly. You want to make, again, your main characters come across as smart, and then off-play that with the trio of killers here in this instance come across even smarter, thinking steps ahead. You call the police, they act quick, they move quicker, or, they disconnect the phone line if they were using phones, but they have cell phones, so you have to work around that. You have to work around the time restraints of knowing how long the police would get there. Things of that nature, instead of, again, coming across really stupid. Or making your main characters come across really stupid and continuously making stupid decisions. So yeah, that's my, if you're writing horror, as an example, that is like one prominent way to make both your main characters and your villains come across as competent in what they're doing. And with competence comes, well, again, you want to root for your main characters more if you had, previously established enough of their character traits at the beginning of the movie, or whatever it is you're doing. At any rate, that is my advice for this little shtick. If you ended up enjoying the review in totality, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also make sure to check out those links in the description. When ahead to my petition to help out small YouTubers. Second to my PayPal, where you can help support me and my channel directly. And third to my Discord server, you can join, collab, shield, all that cool stuff. And until next time, everyone, bye-bye.